just begin with a brief introduction. You can see my name is Maria. You can see my email address. I will ask Francesca to also type it in the chat one more time, so it's easy for you to paste and save if you want to get in touch with me after the event. I sit on the admissions committee for the full-time MBA program, and I oversee the Silver Scholars Committee. So right off the bat, I hope that's a piece of good news for you that yes, there is a Silver Scholars Committee that evaluates all the Silver Scholar applications, which means that you're always gauged against the pool of your peers, okay? You will never be compared to someone applying to our full-time MBA program who has 2, 5, 6, 12 years of work experience, okay? I also oversee our joint degree programs, and in case any of you are interested in those, yes, you can absolutely apply to any of our joint degree offerings as a Silver Scholar candidate. So the first thing that I wanted to say about the Silver Scholars program that is truly distinctive is that it's not a 2+2 or deferred enrollment program, right? For those of you that have begun doing your research and are looking into graduate programs, and obviously more specifically business schools that are accepting applications from college seniors, I'm sure you have noticed that the vast majority do so with the expectation that you'll be working for a few years before you join their full-time MBA class, okay? Usually it's between 2 to 5 years, okay? So what's very unique about the Silver Scholars program is that we enroll you in the MBA class immediately after you complete your undergraduate studies. So whether you graduate early, let's say in December or anytime in the fall, or you graduate in the spring, in May or June, we expect you to begin the MBA program in the fall, okay? So this is essentially the structure of the program. You go through the first year of the MBA program, which we call the integrated core curriculum, and then you work full-time for a year. We call it an extended internship or professional work experience. We call it a lot of different things, but essentially you are taking a hiatus, you're away from campus, and you're working full-time, okay? And then you return to campus and you complete your degree, meaning that you go through the second year of the MBA program, which is all electives, and you can take those across the Yale campus. Now, I want to emphasize that the requirement for the program is to work full-time for a year between the first and the second year. But some of our students actually choose to stay out longer, work maybe for a couple of years, maybe more, up to 5 years. Some of our panelists have done that, so I'm sure they'll share those experiences. And just to give you a sense of scale, the incoming MBA class at the Yale School of Management is about between 340 and 350 every year, okay? And the Silver Scholars make up between 5 and 7% of that MBA class. A common question that I always get in admissions is, what is the committee looking for, right? What is the ideal Silver Scholar? And I just wanted to share a few profiles with you just to give you a sense that we don't have a preference for an academic background, professional experience, or career aspirations, okay? We want to recruit a really diverse class in the MBA generally, and obviously with the Silver Scholars cohort, okay? And just to illustrate that point, I actually pulled a list of the majors of our first-year Silver Scholars. So our incoming MBA class this fall was around 340 students, and 29 of those were Silver Scholars. And what you're seeing on the screen here are their majors. Okay, so yes, we had a couple of economics majors. Yes, we had a couple of finance, a couple of statistics majors. But I hope it gives you confidence that we are not looking for any one particular major in the class, right? We really embrace that kind of academic diversity that Silver Scholars bring into our community. And I mentioned already that that goes for professional experiences as well. I also mentioned the joint degree programs. This is the complete list of 10 programs that are available to you. They're available to all of our MBA students, and yes, the Silver Scholars as well. You will notice an asterisk next to the 2-year accelerated program with the Yale School of Public Health. Sadly, that's the only one that is not available to you as a Silver Scholar. But if you are interested in, the Yale School of Public Health, you can still do the 3-year regular joint degree program. So how does that work when you're a Silver Scholar? Obviously, the MBA program is 2 years. The MPH is 2 years. When you combine them, it becomes a 3-year program, plus the extended internship year that you have to complete as a Silver Scholar. Here, I just wanted to give you, obviously, a very quick macro view of the application process. It is the exact same application that every candidate applying to our full-time MBA program completes. There is one question on the application. It has something to do with, are you currently a college senior with no full-time work experience? And when you check that box, that signals in the system that that application has to be directed to the Silver Scholars pool. Okay, so in that sense, there is no Silver Scholars application. Everybody completes the same application, and that one question makes sure that your candidacy is reviewed in the Silver Scholars pool. Now, the reason why I have 2 application components highlighted here is because they're slightly different for our Silver Scholar candidates. As you can imagine, somebody that has 6-7 years of work experience, we expect to see 2 professional letters of recommendation from that candidate. But if you are a college senior, we want to see 1 academic and 1 professional one. Okay. And in terms of the interview, people applying to the MBA program as professionals with full-time work experience are usually interviewed by we have a group of about 60 second-year students that help us conduct a lot of the interviews. But if you're applying as a Silver Scholar candidate, you will be interviewed by a member of the Silver Scholars committee. And finally, you have a list of our application deadlines and the decision release dates. And this is also actually a bit distinctive in terms of the Silver Scholars program. Most 2+2 deferred programs accept applications from college seniors at the tail end of their application cycle. So whatever their final round is, it could be round 3, it could be round 4. And as you can see, we accept applications from college seniors throughout our application cycle. And if you are graduating early in December, that doesn't mean that you have to submit an application to us in September. You can still apply in round 2 or round 3 because we still consider that whole year technically your senior year. Okay. So I think that's all I had to say. Hopefully kept it under 10 minutes. Fantastic. Okay. Great. So let's turn to the panel now. And I would love to begin with just very brief introductions. Fabio, maybe we can start with you. If you can just give us where you came from in terms of college, what was your academic major, where you're from, if you want to speak more generally about your country or region. And also the second part of my question is, for all the seniors that are listening right now and are trying to make that decision about graduate programs, MBA programs, specifically the Silver Scholars program, if you can tell us a little bit about your particular decision to pursue, an MBA immediately after graduation, thinking back on kind of your thought process as a college senior.
Yeah, happy to. Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Fabio. I'm from Germany originally, grew up in Germany, but came to the US for college. Got my bachelor's in managerial economics from UC Davis and a master's from UC Davis as well in agricultural and resource economics. So sort of like in that econ box. For me, applying really sort of was a bet on recruiting opportunities. Obviously, Yale is very much on top of almost any company's list when it comes to looking at candidates. UC Davis, while being a good school, sort of didn't provide that opportunity. And for me, so I was sort of betting on getting exposure to the companies I really wanted to work for a little bit early in my career. And that's ultimately why I chose Silver Scholars over a couple of other actually deferred programs that I was applying and was admitted to.
Got it. Thank you. Helen, let's go to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And good day, everyone. Hope you're doing well. My name is Kellen Beecham. I hail from Dallas, Texas. And I attended Yale College in my years as an undergraduate, majoring in computing the arts. And that was, for instance, where I had the opportunity to work with virtual reality, computer graphics, and kind of going to a decision for why the Silver Scholars Program. I had a couple of internships during my time as undergrad, focusing on software engineering and data analytics. And it was a nice dive into the technical world, but I think what I enjoyed most about this experience was working through strategy, business decisions, and decision-making across stakeholders. And I felt that pursuing an MBA at this point or juncture in my career would be the perfect pivot to the business world. And so that was what fed along to my desire to go for MBA, but also to have this unique experience build, to have that 1 to 5 years to invest professionally in oneself and then come back with that professional experience was really invaluable. And so for me, that was the bet I made in applying, and thankfully I was able to matriculate. So that's me, and nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylin. Abby.
Yeah, thank you both for going first. Abby, nice to meet you all. I grew up mostly in a small town in Minnesota, but I lived in England till I was about 6, but kind of more Minnesotan. And then I went to undergrad in Minnesota as well, studied finance and accounting there, and then made the decision to apply to SOM. Essentially, I knew I eventually wanted to do an MBA, but I was on track to graduate in 3 years. In the American program, it's typically 4. So my recruiting was structured in undergrad as kind of this 4-year timeline. And so I was looking at something to do in a 4th year of school, and I stumbled across the Silver Scholars Program in research for kind of master's degrees. And I loved the structure of, I thought of it as basically I could earn credit towards an MBA in my 4th year of undergrad, with the opportunity to come back down the line, which I knew I eventually wanted to come back and do an MBA later on in my career anyway. And so the structure just seemed kind of perfect for what I was looking for in my personal sort of goals. So that's sort of why I applied and kind of what brought me here today.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Abby. So my next question was kind of going to the unique structure of the Silver Scholars Program that I outlined in one of our slides. I should have mentioned that point that for anyone that is kind of wondering if maybe the Silver Scholars are in any way separated, isolated from the MBA cohort, if they're a cohort of their own, they're not, they're fully integrated into the MBA community. They're still completing the exact same 2-year full-time in-residence MBA program that everyone does, right? All the MBA students. The only difference is the summer internship versus the extended internship. So my question was about how you spent that extended internship. So if you can tell us, did you take a year? Did you take longer? Where you worked? And also if you can maybe say something about how that first year of the MBA program prepared you for that professional experience. Anything that you want to point out specifically within the integrated core curriculum that was helpful? Who would like to start?
I'm happy to go first again. I think I'm the only one on the panel who actually only did 1 gap year.
Okay.
So it's going to be a little shorter. I worked for Bain & Company in Los Angeles full-time as an associate consultant, and I will also return there after this year. I think what really sort of helped me in my job, maybe and gave me an edge sort of over people that didn't do the program, was sort of the professional and personal development that happens in that first year, right? You really are exposed to pretty high caliber people that have a lot of experience. Those are the type of people that you will be working with once you get into your gap period. And just sort of learning their language, learning how they think about problems was really invaluable to me. And I think that totally set me up for success for my gap period.
Awesome. Thank you. Kaylin, would you like to go next? Because I believe Abby stayed out the longest.
Yeah, sure thing. We can go in that order. Yes. So I am currently at Microsoft as a product manager, and so far it has been 2 years since I've been out, and I'm going to extend for at least 1 more year before potentially returning. I work for the Microsoft Create team specifically, so very much focused on the creator economy, new products you debuted last year, in fact. So it's been a very exciting experience for me. And I think kind of going off what Fabio said, really just a phenomenal experience to interact and work with so many professional people who have many years of wisdom or work experience. But also just to give credit to the classes as well. Just like someone who came from mostly technology and arts, I think that I'll contextualize, I think, the experiences I wanted to have going to product management. And then of course the electives allowed me to kind of select for like the second semester. There was actually a course exclusively for product management, which is exciting. So I think the curriculum as well as the students you get to work with, and just even the professional clubs are offered too, are like phenomenal pivots, I think, to that gap year of experience that you're going to do, whether it be 1 year or 5 years. So that was my route, and that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Abby.
Yeah. So I took 4 years. I spent 2 years at the Boston Consulting Group on the West Coast in Seattle. And then I spent 2 years at Astorg, which is a European private equity firm, where I was on their kind of software and tech investment team. The reason I kind of decided to take a bit longer was a couple of reasons. One was COVID. So I was originally planning to do kind of 2 years at BCG and come back, but it was still the swing of COVID. And so that was one sort of impetus to defer a bit longer. And the second one was I kind of knew I wanted to work in private equity. I had done some private equity projects at BCG and had just gotten the advice that it's sometimes harder to pivot to private equity post MBA if you don't have just a little bit of private equity experience pre-MBA, because you're competing with candidates in post MBA roles who have the pre-MBA private equity experience. And so with that, I wasn't sure how long I was going to work in private equity, but I think COVID also extended it to the 2-year period. But yeah, I guess the first year of business school, similar to what Fabio and Kaylin talked about, the professionalism that you get being in a business school environment, I think does really help prepare you for your first role versus people who are maybe fresh out of undergrad. Just thinking to my own undergrad experience, studied finance, so in the business environment, was very math and test focused. And then coming to SOM, it was much more class participation and presentations and all of those things. And that just makes you, I think, more prepared for work, which is often you're doing presentations more than you are math. So yeah, that's my answers to a couple of questions.
Thank you. And it actually reminded me of something when I was sort of saying that a number of students choose to stay out longer than a year, maybe, work for 3, 4, even up to 5 years. They don't do that necessarily in the same company, industry, geography, right? Oftentimes they see that as an opportunity to explore other things professionally or to get more ideas about what they really want to do after graduation. So I didn't mean to imply that they stay in the same company, although in some cases they do, right? If they're doing really well, they enjoy the work that they do, they're being recognized, promoted. Of course, that can be the case as well. But I also see students kind of moving geographically, especially if they're interested in having a very global career. They may choose to spend time in the United States and abroad during that time. Great. So, Abby, actually, my next question is for you as well. If you can tell us a little bit about SOM culture, as students are looking at programs, applying to business schools. I always say during events that I know they're looking at a lot of things. So they're looking at the class profile, they're looking at rankings, they're looking at professors, they're looking at all sorts of great things. But community matters too, right? I mentioned the class of the SOM, the size of the SOM class. It's relatively small, about 350 students. So I just wanted to ask you about how SOM culture community played into your decision to join us. And also, if you can maybe talk a little bit about whether you interacted with SOM, the community, either before you applied, during the application process, when you were admitted, before you enrolled. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start with the second question, actually. So I visited campus twice before enrolling, one for an interview where I actually got to interview with Maria and one other person, and then once for a welcome weekend. And I just thought that everyone on campus was incredibly friendly and welcoming and opening. And they gave me their emails and numbers asking if I wanted to reach out and chat with them. And it just felt like a very welcoming, friendly place. There wasn't really, it didn't feel highly competitive. Everyone's super competent and intelligent and all these things, but it just felt like it felt less cutthroat than maybe some other business school environments that I had heard about. And just less competitive. Like everyone wanted everyone to have a great time and to succeed in whatever they were choosing. And so that was a big thing for me. I think just the friendly atmosphere, I think, helps with networking and kind of long-term relationships versus maybe more the hyper competitive side. I guess the second bit, what I also really liked about SOM is that people tended to go in a variety of career paths post-graduation, like the and society bit. So you get a lot of people that the forestry school students, that's a big kind of dual degree program here. You'll get people that go to nonprofits, et cetera. So it's not just consulting, banking, et cetera, which I followed those paths, but I think it just makes the classroom experience more fun. Like you get a wider variety of perspectives of students commenting on how they think about a case. And I really like that as well, versus kind of everyone being a private equity or a consultant, et cetera, person, which there are a couple schools, just having friends in the consulting world who are now at business school where everyone's a consultant in their classes mostly. And so I think that I also really liked. And then there were little things like I liked the smaller town feel. Everyone's sort of close together and you feel very kind of pressured to socialize, not pressured, but encouraged to socialize in New Haven versus kind of disperse and travel all the time, et cetera. Like it just felt much more, I don't know, collegial in that sense, which I quite liked.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Thank you for plugging.
I
I like it as well that it's a small town. It's walkable, it's easily accessible. You can take advantage of a lot of things happening on campus, right? You don't have to drive for 45 minutes or get on a bus to get to an event. It's conducive to socializing and also taking advantage of other social, cultural kind of activities and initiatives. So thank you. Fabio, I wanted to ask you about engagement on campus as a current student. And on campus, not necessarily SOM, but even Greater Yale University, if you've been able to do that. What clubs, student organizations you're a part of, you're contributing to? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to speak to that. I think it's a common misconception that as a Silver Scholar, you're sort of a little bit excluded from that part of community, but I think that's really not the case. My first year, which was 2 years ago, I led Fit for Thought, which is sort of the little gym we have in SOM's basement. That has been really fun because we just came out of COVID hibernation, so that gym actually hasn't been opened or used in 2 years, and like leading the reopening strategy for that was like super fun. I am very involved in SM United, which is the soccer club. I actually also flew back last year a couple times to New Haven just to play soccer. We go on a lot of fun tournaments. We have a tournament at Columbia, we have a tournament at Harvard, and it's just a great way to build community and also like meet folks from different business schools. And currently now in my second year, I'm leading the curriculum for the PEVC club, which is also very, very fun and rewarding, both in the sense of being able to bring knowledge to my classmates, but also in the process learning a lot about the PE landscape myself. So I think it is really very possible as a Silver Scholar to get involved and to find your niche. And it might feel in some instances a little bit more uncomfortable because you might feel a little bit like an imposter. But once you get yourself out there, it is very rewarding and fun.
Fantastic. And Fabio, I forgot to add to my question something that I often hear from prospective applicants, and I think you as students are in a better position to answer than me. They wonder if it's challenging to kind of reintegrate yourself into the SOM community after you're away for a year, or do you keep your connections? Obviously, I know you keep your Yale.edu email address, but apart from that, how do you stay connected to the community, and what does it feel like once you return?
Yeah, I think it's a valid concern, but sort of piggybacking off what Abby just said, Yale is a very, very inclusive community. And if you want to make friends, if you want to make connections, people genuinely are very, very welcoming and open to that. I was a little bit nervous coming back this year because I knew like the 5 folks or so that I did my first year with that are coming back as Silver Scholars. But I totally did not feel lonely or didn't feel like I couldn't meet other people if I wanted to. There's tons of social events happening. There's tons of recruiting events happening. I'm very involved with Bain recruiting in the fall this year, so I'm meeting tons of people through that. So there's really just a lot of avenues to get involved on campus and to meet people and to make friends and to build those connections. It's maybe a little bit less sort of natural than it is in the first year when you're like in your very close-knit cohort and your learning team. But the community as a whole just makes it really easy to feel at home.
Got it. Thank you. And Kaylin, everybody wants to know about career resources. It's an important consideration, right? So I don't want to ask you, obviously, to give us an overview of the Career Development Office, but if you can maybe mention some things that you have found helpful on your internship or job search journey, if you've had an experience with the Yale Alumni Network, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question. I think first, I just mostly said the Career Development Office is a phenomenal resource. Like the people who work in the office are incredible folks who care about, I think, our well-being as students and really care about making sure every student has some mapping towards success in whether it be an internship or a full-time role. And with that being said, I think just some of the research that stood out to me was just some of the programming that takes place even before the year starts, where we do have the opportunity to like work with the Career Development Office and building our resumes or thinking through like or brainstorming what companies we might be interested in. And they help us really flesh out the ideas for what we want or our interest for what we want to pursue as we're entering that school year. But as we enter the school year, like a lot of the resources, particularly I found to be quite useful were the resume reviews in particular, where they'll work with you to make sure you're building your resumes to the right voice. Often, and then speaking of voice, and be able to craft yourself well for the mock interviews, I should say, as well. Just a lot of those preparatory, I think, settings are really, I think, were really beneficial to me as I was going through the recruiting process. But also do want to call out that there is also space created for Silver Scholars too, where we'll have a chance to meet as a cohort and through with the Career Development Office and meet each other and somewhat understand like and kind of help us understand what that recruiting process is for Silver Scholars. And naturally, of course, that is, once you don't have necessarily that work experience to go into internships, but like I said, the Career Development Office is very great about helping you craft that voice and find opportunities, I think, that mesh well with your interests, but also lead well for however many years you want to invest in that gap period. So really just to say overall, the Career Development Office is quite phenomenal. And for me, a lot of those, I think, experiences together were really beneficial to me for finding a full-time work at Microsoft. And I think that would be the same for, I think, Abby and Fabio as well.
Awesome, thank you. So Francesca, they have been keeping Francesca very busy and sending a few questions her way. I'm just trying to scan the list of those. So one common question that we get is obviously prospective applicants turn to our website to see the class profile and they don't see a separate one for the Silver Scholars. And there isn't one because it's the same program, right? It's the exact same MBA program. So you're part of the incoming class, and every year, obviously, your stats and numbers go towards the whole MBA class. I understand the impetus behind those questions and anxieties, right? Everybody kind of wants to understand, yeah, but how competitive is the Silver Scholars program? What are my chances here? And so I want to speak candidly about how, in the admissions office as a committee, we review, the applications of young professionals versus Silver Scholar candidates. So we do place a little bit more emphasis on academics when it comes to Silver Scholar candidates, right? Because as I said earlier in my presentation, we will never compare your resume with that of someone who has a significant work experience under their belt, right? So to kind of balance things out, we look at the academic profile of your application, which includes three things: your academic record, your standardized test scores, and the academic letter of recommendation. Okay, that constitutes the academic profile of your candidacy, and we do put a little bit more emphasis on that as opposed to the professional work experience. Okay, a question that prospective applicants ask sometimes, and I'll ask maybe one or a couple of you to address it, is when you begin the MBA program and you find yourself on a learning team with people that are significantly, I wouldn't say significantly, sometimes significantly, oftentimes not, because a lot of our MBA students have 2 years of work experience, which is not that much more, right? But you could be possibly on a learning team with somebody, a seasoned professional, somebody with significant professional experiences, accomplishments. What does that feel like? Is it challenging? And do you feel like you're making a bigger contribution? What you may lack in work experience, you're making a bigger contribution on the academic side. So would anyone like to comment? And sorry, just to give everyone kind of, again, the bigger picture, the class of 350 MBA students is divided into 5 cohorts. Each cohort is divided into small learning teams of 3 to 4 people and large learning teams of 7 to 8 people, and you will never get 2 Silver Scholars on a team, correct? Correct. Okay, so would anyone like to comment on kind of your experience, or even if it's just from the point of view of were you apprehensive about it coming into the MBA, and how did that feel before, during?
I can go. I think definitely was worried that my perspectives just towards cases wouldn't be taken as seriously or things like that. But I found, and I think other Silver Scholars speak to this, that in a homework setting, you're fresh out of school, so you know how to do school efficiently and well, versus people who've been out of school for X years. And so oftentimes what I found, and also talked to other Silver Scholars, you sometimes take a leadership role on your learning team where you're more structuring the paper, or you're figuring out like how to ensure you meet the rubric, et cetera, because that's what you've been doing for the last, 3-4 years. And so I actually found in my learning team, they're often very grateful when they get a Silver Scholar, because a Silver Scholar takes on sometimes more of the academic load, and can sometimes, they care more about grades and points because they're right out of this points environment. And so people who have Silver Scholars tend to do better sometimes on assignments. But anyway, it's definitely, you have less experience from a work standpoint, but you just have a much fresher kind of school and points experience that helps you academically and helps your learning team. And broadly, I think they're grateful for that. And in my first year learning team, I'm still in contact with almost everyone. We have a group chat, and we send things in there every once in a while. So it's a great group of people that I felt very welcomed into.
Great, thank you.
I think just maybe contrasting this on the social side of things, no one cares or even really knows unless you tell them that you're a Silver Scholar, right? My close friends, my learning team, obviously they're not Silver Scholars, but all my close friends from my first year are not Silver Scholars. That just happened to be that way. It wasn't something I chose or anything. But I think that just shows that this really isn't as big of a deal as you might think when you come in or when you apply. It was definitely something I was nervous about. Someone on my learning team had 3 kids, and was 35 years old, coming from the army. And obviously we're in a totally different stage of life, but like we do have something to talk about, and we work towards the same goal, getting recruited and, doing okay in school and making friends. So I think you're there, and your journey is very much more similar to other people's than you might think initially.
Yeah, thank you. Fabio, I always say at recruitment events, walking around the SOM building, you will never be able to tell who the Silver Scholars are, right? And especially now as you return, obviously you're there, especially with a few years of work experience under your belt. And secondly, if you also think about all the graduates around the world that complete a 3-year bachelor's degree, they're on the younger side, right? They're 20, 21 when they graduate. They get 2 years of work experience. So they're right around your age when they begin as so-called, general, regular MBA students, but they're pretty much age-wise on par with the Silver Scholar population. Great, so we have a few questions about joint degree programs and kind of, do they apply simultaneously to both programs? You apply separately. They're 2 completely separate application processes, deadlines, and requirements evaluated by 2 completely different committees that do not talk to each other. And by that, I mean, they don't influence each other's decisions, okay? So if you want to apply to the law school, you have to submit an application there. You submit one to us, and when you're admitted into both programs, this is when you become a joint degree student. I don't believe anyone here has gone that route or has considered a joint degree program, right? Especially given the flexibility that you can to take classes anywhere on campus. So I won't ask Kalen because he has not returned yet, but Fabio and Abby, can you maybe talk about A class or an interest that you have outside of SOM, something that you've explored academically in Greater Yale, whether it's related to your career interest or just purely out of intellectual curiosity, a class you decided to take somewhere on campus?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I'm currently in a PhD seminar on American politics, and that's not at all, I mean, it's an interest of mine, but it's not at all something I'm ever going to do anything with in my career. But my goal coming to SOM was just that in every quarter or every semester where I can take an elective, I'm going to do something outside of SOM to sort of challenge myself academically or intellectually in a different way than maybe a business school class does it. And this class is just, a lot of reading, but like a very interesting way of thinking. And so I really enjoy sort of that change of pace.
Great. Fabio, can I just say, you never know what you'll use and when. And I was once at an event in Sao Paulo giving a presentation about SOM, and we always invite local alumni. And one of the alumni that had joined me got asked that question, actually. So how did you take advantage of taking electives across the Yale campus? And she shared that at the time, she just was curious about architecture, decided to take a course, at the Yale School of Architecture. And fast forward 5, 6, 7 years later, she's working for Uber, and everything she learned about urban design is coming in handy. So you never know, right? Abby, I don't know if you wanted to add something about taking a course or exploring something outside of SOM.
I unfortunately have not taken a class outside of SOM, so probably not the right person to speak to this. Apologies.
No worries. The academic year has just begun, so there's still time in the spring, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me see what else we're getting a lot of questions now. So let me see. Okay, somebody is in their junior year, so they're starting the process early, kind of like you, Abby. You mentioned that you had this in mind or in the back of your mind to eventually do an MBA. And I think this person here is asking about what approach they should take in terms of professional experiences. And I think she is asking for the admissions perspectives in terms of what we want to see, what we're looking for. But I think it's more helpful for you to speak as a candidate, because I try to make a point that we don't have a preference. I always say to students that they should pursue their passions. And, by the time they submit an application, they should be clear about what they want to do professionally. This is what we're looking for in the Silver Scholars program. This is why the program was created, right? For students that have a very strong idea of what they want to do in their final year of college. And so I don't want to stir the candidate in any direction, but maybe because, again, you are in his shoes, maybe you can say a little something about how you decided, what approach you decided to take.
Yeah, good for you for starting early. I think if you have more time to start early, if you're thinking about building your resume, I think the advice that I would give is you're going to have to write a statement as to why SOM or why Silver Scholars. See if there's experiences that you can do on campus, or maybe there's an internship or an extracurricular or a part-time job that will connect to kind of what you want to do or why you want to attend SOM now. So there's kind of a story between your resume and your essay. So it's not like you're writing an essay on I want to work in architecture, but then you have nothing in architecture on your resume. So it's kind of, I think when you start early, you have time to, if you know what you want to do, you have time to kind of build a resume in those experiences. And then that makes it easier for the admissions committee to kind of follow what you're actually going to do. That's kind of, I think if you have extra time, what I would do. And then the other thing is just, even though they care, as they mentioned, about kind of the whole picture, et cetera, I think if you do start early, maybe getting an extra internship in during the school year, if you can, just to fill your resume might be something helpful. But again, you don't have to. But I think, if you're applying as an undergrad, you have to fill the career experience section. And sometimes just having one extra resume to fill that part of your, or that one extra experience to fill that part of your resume can be helpful. So you don't feel like it's too blank. But again, you don't have to do that. It's kind of personal preference. It could be, you could do anything, but that's kind of my couple of pieces of advice I would give if you're starting early.
Agreed. Awesome. We have a question about the global studies requirement. So just to give a bit of information on our listeners that are not familiar with it, before graduation, every Yale SOM student has to have some kind of a global experience. And there's a menu of options that vary in duration, intensity, they take you to different parts of the world. So I think they just want to know if you have already done that requirement or if you're looking to the spring to do that, who would like to start?
I can start. I'm currently in Europe because I will do a so-called Global Network Week, which is basically an intensive 1-week course at Oxford starting on Monday. So I actually just flew from the US to Germany today and landed a couple hours ago. And yeah, that's gonna be my global studies requirement.
Awesome, thank you. And again, thank you for making time on your travels. I almost forgot it's Global Network Week, yes. Has anyone else looked into that, what you're interested in doing? Have you done something already?
I can go next. So speaking as someone who hasn't returned yet from my gap period, I am very much interested in the international exchange program, which is an opportunity which you can actually exchange 1 full semester, to study abroad. And for those who are interested, usually you'll have to, I think you apply, I think as from someone who's on a gap year, I would apply this upcoming winter. And then I would either opt into fall or spring of the next, following year, which I would rematriculate back into the Yale School of Management. And so particularly I'm hoping to study in Barcelona, if I can go for that international exchange program there. And then that would be for fall and then ideally return in springs to finish my 2nd year. So that's just one option. Another option for those who want to expend extended time. Of course, you will be giving up and sacrificing, the second year, which has a lot of, I think, 2nd-year traditions at school management. So it is a choice to consider if you do want to spend that much time away. But as person, as someone who hasn't ventured much beyond the United States, this is a pretty exciting opportunity I'm hoping to take advantage of when I do return one.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kaylin. And yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's 25% of your time in a 2-year program, right? So it's probably not the most popular international option, but it really makes sense for some students, and they take advantage of it, and it's a good option for them. Wonderful, thank you. And Abby, I don't know if you've decided already or if you wanted to.
Yeah, I did in my 1st year, actually, I did the international experience course. So we kind of get the variety of all experiences here, which is it's run by an SOM professor. They have, I think, 8 to 10 or so of these courses that you do in your spring break, in your spring semester. And you can do it either your 1st or 2nd year. I decided to do that one. I did one in Israel. It was tech focused. So we were visiting a lot of startups. And then I kind of knew I had an interest in tech, and I eventually worked at tech and software investment team on the private equity side. So found it very valuable just from work kind of interest, but also I really like the structure of it because we visited a lot of startups. So it was less kind of the class academic focused. It was site visits. And that was a really positive experience. And then it was with kind of 20 or 30 other SOMers. So you build really great relationships with them on the trip too, which I quite liked. But yeah, it was a great experience.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're almost out of time, and I have one last question for you, really important one for everybody listening and thinking about applying in this application cycle or the following one. Can you offer a quick word of advice, either a more general advice or maybe something that you wish you knew at the time when you were applying, or just a word of encouragement to everyone that is, kind of thinking about it and intimidated by, what the competitiveness of the program is? Who would like to start?
I can start with this one. I think for me, just 2 pieces of advice I think come to mind immediately. Is one, of course, I think someone who's asked the question has the idea is that starting early, I think, is key. Like thinking through perhaps, is the Silver Scholar program right for you? Is it what you want to pursue at such an early stage? I think undergoing that introspection, I think, is very important, especially as you're going through the undergraduate years, to see if that's the right fit, right? But then second, I would also say, you have time when you enter the application, cycle. There are those 3 rounds, and I like to say to folks who do talk about this program, apply when you feel ready. Whether it's the first round, second round, third round, I think as Abby also spoke to, if you have time and you want to fit in opportunities for more internships and more experiences, lean into those. And don't have to feel rushed to apply for round 1, round 2, round 3, because then you'd have the opportunity to build your profile the way you want it to be and put your best foot forward for the application cycle. So I think a combination of really starting early with introspection, but also going with that preparedness and being intentional about the round you want to commit to, I think is a good way to have a successful, I think, journey through the application process. Those would be my 2 pieces of advice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll go quickly next. I think advice I would give is similar to Kaylin's. Think about kind of your why as to why you want to do the program, but from your own personal kind of why and why this is right for you. But I'll also say that you get asked it a lot in interviews. I think every interview I've ever had, they ask, why did you do this? Why SOM, etc. And so just having your crisp why for yourself is really helpful, but having the crisp why that you know you can share with other people that's cohesive and it makes sense given your resume will just help you with recruiting down the line too. Because I think if you come here and you're not really sure if it's what you want to do, and then you don't have the why for the employers, it just might be a hard question to answer, confuse them when they're, because it's a great program, but you just often get asked that question because it is unique, which is super cool. So just having that why, I think, helps in the interview process too.
Yeah, thank you, Abby, for extending that to your time at SOM as well. Yes. And Fabio.
Yeah, I think totally agree. And I think one great way to build this why is to find someone that relates to you in some way that you have a commonality with and reach out to those people. If you find a Silver Scholar that you maybe share a background with, reach out to them, ask how their experience was, ask about the challenges, right? I think very often you're sort of looking at a great opportunity and you're sort of building your why just around the great things. There's always going to be challenges and it's always better to be prepared for those. So ask about those. Understand why someone made the decision to do it, and sort of build. It's going to help you shape your own story. And as Abby said, really having the story airtight is going to be super, super important. Not only when it comes to getting into SOM, but also when it comes to getting a job, because employers will ask, how does this really weird program fit into your story? And if you can explain how this not only benefits you, but also your employer, you're going to be a really, really strong candidate with a huge edge on other people.
Great. I think that's a great note to end on. So I'll just thank everyone. First of all, the panelists, thank you for joining me on your lunch hour, or Fabio, it's your dinner hour. Francesca, if you don't mind sharing my email address in the chat one more time so people know how to get in touch with me if they have any application related questions. So just wishing everyone a good day or a good evening, and hope that we can stay in touch. Thank you once again.